Hey everybody, this is a late night video blog, but I want to make sure that you're aware of two interviews I'm really excited about next week. On Monday, that's this coming Monday, at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, which will be 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to have my friend Mike Jacob, the lawyer for the East Oakland Stadium Alliance and Pacific Maritime Association, on as my guest. Our specific focus that Mike and I are going to be laser beam concentrated on discussing, and to probably the exclusion of all oats, is the very simple topic of the very controversial mailer that he sent out, or his organization sent out, not so much him, that he sent out, and or say his organization. Now, the mailer, you've undoubtedly seen it. I'm actually putting this also on social media as I talk. But the mailer is full of inaccuracies about Howard Terminal. It's focused on Howard Terminal. And PMSA is Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. So I want to do the proper respect to that great organization. And yes, it is a great organization in spite of the fact that I don't happen to agree with their approach right now. But I digress. There are two errors, actually three, in the mailer. Hey Barry Lee, how you doing? The first error states that the project will cost the public $1 billion. That's not true. In fact, the simple knowledge that the plan has been and is to use enhanced industrial financing district legislation means, first, that they will form a separate district, or should form a separate district, a public financing authority, to issue bonds. And by the way that the legislation is written, the debt for those bonds, hey Richard, how you doing? The debt for those bonds, and Richard, thanks for your contributions, by the way. The debt for those bonds will be paid for by the district. The district collects the tax increment from the area, whatever area it is. A lot of people are focused on what the map is. And when people focus on the map size, that's the first sign that they're kind of rank amateurs at this sort of thing, because their focus should always be is total assessed value. Even the mayor makes this mistake, because the mayor sent a response to me saying that there has to be a difference between basically what we call secured and unsecured property. All right, let me tell you something. Unsecured property and its contribution to a tax increment is difficult to estimate. Why? Because it consists of construction machinery on the site, airplanes, trucks, so on. Unless you have a set of contracts which then guarantees a certain truck volume, and you can estimate from there, that's iffy. But the property itself is a different story. It's fixed to the ground, so that your best bet is always to start with your estimates, and then a general rule of thumb is about 7% unsecured property in terms of value, unless of course you got enough data to do a very reliable calculation or estimate of secured property there and what's going to be there in the future. But that's a general rule of thumb that I've used over the 3 decades that I've done this, and it's worked pretty well. So it's worked pretty well for me. It worked pretty well for me in the context of the Coliseum redevelopment area, the largest redevelopment area ever formed in California. That was the one that I worked on as an intern, and I developed the computer model for it and the numbers around it that form the basis for its tax increment financing provisions that were in play until Jerry Brown took redevelopment away. But I digress. You got to make sure your first estimate should be, your first question should be, how much base year assessed value do I need to achieve an objective of generating a desired level of tax increment. My point is this, I'm gonna make it really simple. You can target your tax increment, okay? You can target the revenue you wanna generate. But the people that the mayor is working with act like you can't do that. And so they're afraid to take that step. I know where that comes from with some consultants. Those are consultants you don't want to work with, because I'm telling you, the large majority of people around the United States that have done tax increment financing are very good at doing the kind of estimating that I've done and I'm talking about right now. But that hasn't come to play in the city. The city is still at square one. So I'm going to talk. So anyway, the point that I'm making with Mike Jacob is that just by the explanation I gave you, it's quite obvious that the city of Oakland will not will not be the backstop for those bonds. In other words, if the bond happens to default, it's the district that has to pay it. And in some deals, they wind up taking over the properties that are there, okay? Because the reason is very simple, all right? If you have a bond that defaults, you say, okay, where's my collateral? Well, I'll take the collateral that's equal to what property the district has jurisdiction over, or the district itself. So the underwriter can very well take over that district. But that generally is not going to happen. A organization like the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority will use a 3-to-1 bond debt ratio. Okay, 3-to-1. 3-to-1. That means for every $3 of revenue, there's $1 of bond debt. The common standard is 2-to-1. The raters, they use 1.5-to-1. That's why they got into trouble really early. In other words, for every $2 of revenue, you have $1 of debt. Okay. So when the city of Oakland's project manager, Molly Mayburn, started rattling off what she thought the tax increment finance revenue would be, and she rattled it off and then referred to a present value, that's wrong. You don't use a present value calculation to determine your bond debt. What you do is you estimate the rate of growth in assessed value over a period of years, 45 years, okay? And then when you're thinking about the bond, you have to figure out the bond interest rate and size the bond over that period. And then you can figure out how much of that revenue, and there's actually a formula you can plug in for that will be available to you for a bond issue. The easy rule of thumb is this: if I know I'm going to get 1.6 billion in tax increment revenue, I'll cut it in half, and I'll use that 800 million in revenue as the basis for my bond issue, okay? So you've got two rates. Remember, the bond issue has its own rate, right? So you have to figure that in. Then you have to think about the rate of growth in a land value. So you can't use a present value calculation because it only deals with one rate, not two. It's just not something that's done. So when I heard Mayburn refer to that, and then I heard Daniel Bornstein of the East Bay Times cough up the same gobbledygook, I thought, these folks have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're doing. They're just throwing out numbers, and they're doing a disservice to the people that they're trying to inform, because they won't admit that they don't know. They don't know, all right? So there's been a lot of amateurism that has crept into this, and for a very sound reason. Jerry Brown killed redevelopment, all right? So with Mike, what I'm talking to him about is why, when you have a lot of sound arguments to make regarding concerns with Howard Terminal, would you come up with something that's essentially a lie? Mike knows the project's not $1 billion. He knows that. So why put out a mailer that says that? Why make it seem like that? That's why I am flatly opposed to a public vote, because there's too much misinformation. And that misinformation is just simply going to go into a larger echo chamber if a public vote is approved, and the real truth about the project will never come about. It'll just simply be A's proponents versus people who don't want it for whatever reason. But they won't learn anything. And what will be magnified is the simple fact that the city people themselves, by the mayor's own admission to me last year, don't understand that tax increment financing. Okay? So Richard says, aren't there truth? Isn't there truth? No, there's no truth in advertising rules. I mean, come on, Richard, we're in a fake news environment, right? No. And Donald Trump really started this. The idea basically is if I can say something to you many, many times and get you believe my BS, then I can make it truth. All I have to do is never admit that I'm wrong. That's the game in society today, and it's an ugly one. All right? And basically it takes people to a position where you actually have to wait to the outcome. And Richard says an EOSA is lucky someone doesn't sue over the use of copyrighted images. Well, here's the thing. That you can't. There's a warning there, all right? First of all, because you don't like what somebody is doing, don't then go look at what they're doing and just try to critique something. That's gotcha politics, and it doesn't work. Here's the reason. Copyright, I will argue that the East Oakland Stadium Alliance has fair use. Why? Because they're using it as news commentary. They can do that. So one person's copyright image is another person's image that's used for news commentary. That's fair use doctrine. And what they do passes the Stanford 4 factors test. Again, I may not like their message, but that doesn't mean I'm going to turn around in the next breath, just sort of come up with something whole cloth. I mean, I know that law. I know it so well that I've been basically I have consulted the NFL, and I had to because back in the early days of digital media and video, they had some attorneys over there screwing with what I was doing at the NFL draft. That's how I became friends with Jeff Pash, who's their head of legal to this day. All right? So, no, just a word of warning. Just for anybody watching this, stick to the basics of an argument. Don't wade into territory you don't know. Just pay attention to things that are in your face, that are immediately provable. But don't guess at something. We live in what I call the assumptive society. People assume that something is wrong, and the assumptions are generally on the negative with respect to something that they don't like. Okay? So, a person's doing something and maybe they are of a certain background, so they assume that this person is this. Completely wrong. It's also a hallmark of a negative aspect of our society that has created, I argue, a lot of problems, including mass shootings. We're in an assumptive society. Please do not repeat the assumptions. Just always ask yourself, the minute you think you want to challenge somebody, you think you've got them, test yourself. Say, wait a minute, how do I know this is true? Did I actually research it? And if the answer is no, back off. Back off. Okay? You got other things to do. All right. So Mike and I are going to talk about that. I consider Mike a good friend, like him a lot. We happen to have a disagreement about this, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm honored that he's coming on. Thursday at 3 o'clock, Oakland Mayor Schaaf will join me. And it's a long time coming. Okay? Richard says, I'm going to buy my copyright. Your copyright attorney is wrong. Tell your copyright attorney he's wrong. He or she. Okay? Wrong. Again, the East Oakland Stadium Alliance has fair use legal right argument. Period. That I know. Okay? So your copyright, some copyright attorneys don't know about fair use. A lot of people don't. But no, I will debate your copyright attorney. You bring your copyright attorney on my show, I will teach your copyright attorney a thing or two. Okay? Seriously. So anyway, no. And by the way, look up the Stanford 4 factors test. Okay? Because if your copyright attorney is a good copyright attorney, your copyright attorney knows off the top what the Stanford 4 factors test is, as I do. Because I have to defend the many thousands of YouTube videos we put up over the years, including one of yours, from the standpoint of fair use, okay? No, Richard, you're doing assumptive again, all right? Just, hey man, cut your loss, okay? You're being assumptive. It's not factual. You're coming up with that yourself. Or my point is, no, it's not a matter of factual. It's called news commentary. All right, you're using the photograph as news commentary because it's part of news. And the other part of the Stanford 4 factors test is very simple. Does the use of the photo significantly alter the market for it? The answer, in the case of how the East Oakland Stadium Alliance is using the photo, is no. Why? Because it simply enhances demand for the photo. More people see it, they want it, so it enhances demand. That's standard. That one proof alone is enough to blow anyone's claim away. But guess what? With the Stanford 4 factors test, you have 4 items of proof. That's just one. All right? What's the other? The other is very simple, and this is where the East Oakland Stadium Alliance really wins. They can say, hey, I'm using this as part of my overall information campaign to the public to tell them something they didn't know before. Bingo, zappo, lapo, powo, all the letters that you would see in the Batman from 1966 where Batman goes, pew, pow, right, would be done unto you, okay? That's exactly how it would look, all right? That's, again, the Stanford 4 factors test. I'm telling you, I have been through this too many times, man. Okay, way too many times, all right? Okay, so I'm saying your friend can come on and challenge me, but I'll kick your friend's butt. I'm just letting you know that. Stanford 4 factors test. Now, moving along. And again, folks, for those of you watching, never, ever, because you don't like what somebody is doing, assume that they're wrong about something else. If you don't know, just don't even wade into that territory, okay? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's information or political, Richard. It's a good question, okay? All right? The whole purpose of it is that you're informing somebody. Political campaign by its nature is informing somebody. That's old hat. There are, now that I think about it, there's 2 cases I can think of where that falls right into there that are like 15 years old. This is old hat, man. This is old hat, okay? The point of the matter is that you're using that photograph and you're saying that you're using it to educate somebody and you're adding new information to it. Now note, I said the East Oakland Stadium Alliance photo information was wrong. They argue that it's right. They're trying to inform the public. It doesn't matter that I think they're wrong. The bottom line is they do introduce something new. Why? Because a piece of information that I happen to disagree with. But it is a novel argument. It's wrong, but it's novel. Does it educate people? Does it make them think about things in a certain way? Of course it does. Because it makes them ask a question. Again, you may not like what they're doing, but you don't have the grounds to challenge the legality of how they lose a photograph in this instance. Not with fair use, okay? Not at all. In this environment, with Howard Terminal, that is a tough, extremely tough road to hoe, all right? And again, avoid being assumptive. It seems to make me hard for you, but you got to do it. You got to grow beyond that. Say, okay, punt. Just, do the Lucy thing with the football. Boop. Just make sure you're not Charlie Brown at the bottom holding the football. Anyway, okay. Or maybe you want to be. I forgot how that cartoon went. Whatever. My point is that that's what we're going to talk about. Then the mayor and I on Thursday at 3 o'clock, Pacific, 6 o'clock this time. Hey, welcome, by the way. We'll also talk about Howard Terminal, but I want to know where we are from a procedural perspective. For example, when I headed the effort to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland, we lost to Jacksonville. I had established something called the Oakland-Alameda County Sports Commission. We had regular monthly meetings. We had an agenda. We had progress reports. We had the agendas filed. Lee Steinberg was on it. Lee Steinberg put Scott Parker on it. Scott Parker was then his Berkeley-based agent. We had people from law firms, local Oakland law firms who were on it. We grew to something like 46 members, all right? But the point is that you could progress, you could chart our progress. By contrast, you can't do that with Howard Terminal. You go online, there's no public financing authority. When you look for an update, the latest update was dated the 25th of February. Now, why this was done? Did either the athletics who are paying the staff rate or the city want to avoid the sunshine ordinance that most certainly would have applied to a public financing authority? Okay? Because right now, you cannot track exactly where Howard Terminal is. And so I argue that since 2019, the Howard Terminal has not demonstrably and effectively moved. They're back to square one with the matter of the enhanced industrial financing district. I want to find out from the mayor why we're not using a process. I want to find out where we are with tax increment financing. And I want to find out from her if they have factored in truly what the schedule is going to look like when we start forming the Public Financing Authority, or what they call the District Board in SB 293 Skinner parlance. And I want to find out if she's factored in how long it's going to take to write the industrial financing plan. These are all called for by law. Specifically, not just SB 293 Skinner, but the father of all enhanced industrial financing district legislation in California, SB 628 Beal, from Jim Beal, signed into law in September of 2015, September 14th, if memory serves, by then California Governor Jerry Brown. All right. So I want to find out where we are with that. My overall objective in all this is to find out why our ducks are not in a row. Because this chaos has done nothing but been amplified by media people who have no idea how these projects are supposed to be done. None. Okay? None. They haven't been there. I have. All right? And the other problem is that the vast majority of people who've done this sort of thing in Oakland have retired or passed away. I'll be 60 this year. 60. The people that I worked for are on the average roughly about, I would say 14 years older than me. Yeah. Okay. We have lost a generation of redevelopment experts. And those people that are flying around as consultants are working off the new law. Some of them remember the old law, but they've also brought in their own practices in some cases. Not all. Okay, not all. But we're not getting our money's worth from consultants. And this has gone on for too long. This is the 24th of June of 2022. We don't have a groundbreaking. If it takes 2.5 to 3 years to build this thing, maybe 4, okay? If we started now, just whole cloth, damn the approvals, put the shovel in the ground, right? All that stuff, right? We're looking at 2026. So if we're looking at 2026 from this point, imagine when we start really adding on the time that it takes to form the industrial financing plan and the district before then, and get our financing ducks in a row, okay? So we start looking at 2024. Then we look at 2028 for completion. Could the Athletics do it faster in Las Vegas? Right now, where they are at is, either way they look, Oakland or Las Vegas is going to take them time. Arguably have a little more time here, but not having the financing ducks in a row is a big setback. Trashing and here's the other problem, okay? We have to know what the tax increment revenue throw-off it will be so we can pay the community benefits. Otherwise, the city will be sued and we'll wind up coughing things. Pete says, hey, what's up, Zinni? I've been well. Quick question. What does the sports world know about crypto, Dogecoin stuff? That's a very broad question that's far outside the scope of this live stream that I'm about to end in a few seconds. Now, I can give you a short answer that the crash of crypto impacts sports sponsorships. I think the reason why is pretty simple. All right. So anyway, so remember the dates. This Monday, mark your calendar out. The YouTube host sites for both are already up on Zinni 62. Monday, 2 o'clock, Mike Jacob, 2 o'clock Pacific. Be there, please. Thursday, 3 o'clock Pacific with the mayor. Be there, please. I'm going to bed. Thank you for your questions. And remember, don't be a part of the assumptive society. Also remember the Stanford 4 factors test. Pete takes it. I appreciate you, buddy. It's so weird. I hate it. Hey, Pete, I will devote a special segment on that subject. I will make it tomorrow if I can. We'll see. But I'll definitely get to it by Sunday. All right. Live long and prosper, everybody. See ya.